The Galactic Federation Academy of Tactical Sciences prided itself on producing the finest military strategists in the known universe. Commander Zoltan Raxis, a seven-limbed Voltari with skin the color of burnished copper and a voice that could make a supernova seem underwhelming, stood at the front of the lecture hall. His upper appendages gestured dramatically at the holographic display, showing a complex battle formation. And this, cadets, is how the Battle of Proxima Centauri was won. Notice the elegant flanking maneuver employed by Admiral Kraz'Tor. Pure tactical brilliance. The amphitheater of alien students nodded in reverent agreement. All except one. In the back row, Lieutenant Maya Foster sat with her arms crossed, her expression flat as the Kansas plains she'd grown up on. The only human in the advanced fleet strategy course, she'd spent the last 3 months listening to these brilliant tactics that wouldn't have survived first contact with Earth's medieval armies, let alone modern warfare. Val Torex, a spindly Ardaxian with translucent blue skin who'd somehow become Maya's closest friend at the academy, leaned over. "Your face is doing that thing again," he whispered. "What thing?" Maya muttered, not taking her eyes off the display. "That human thing where you look like you're mentally dismantling everyone in the room." "Just the tactics, Krill. Just the tactics." Commander Raxis's eye stalks swiveled toward them. Perhaps Lieutenant Foster and Cadet Val Torex would care to share their fascinating conversation with the class? A hush fell over the room. 300 alien cadets turned to stare at the human. Maya could practically hear their thoughts. The Deathworlder is in trouble now. Maya straightened up. "I was just commenting that Admiral Kraz'Tor's tactic would have failed catastrophically against a competent opponent," she said, her voice clear and confident. The entire class gasped in unison. Questioning the hollowed tactics of the great Admiral Kraz'Tor? Unthinkable. Commander Raxis's upper limbs froze mid-gesture. Decent. Note, his yellow eyes narrowed to slits. "Would you care to elaborate on that bold statement, Lieutenant?" Maya stood up, walked down to the holographic display, and pointed at the formation. "Splitting your forces in the face of a numerically superior enemy is suicide, unless you have a technological or tactical advantage that isn't shown here. This flanking maneuver left both wings vulnerable to being overwhelmed individually. The historical record disagrees with you, Lieutenant," Raxis said with the smug confidence of someone who'd never faced actual combat. "The battle was a decisive victory, because the opposing commander was incompetent," Maya replied, "not because this was a good plan." A low murmur spread through the classroom. Krill sank lower in his seat, probably wishing he could disappear into the ventilation system. Commander Raxis's skin darkened several shades, the Voltari equivalent of turning red with anger. "Perhaps you'd care to demonstrate your superior human tactical wisdom in tomorrow's fleet simulation exercise? You can command the defensive fleet, and I'll select our top student to lead the attack." Maya smiled. "I'd be delighted, sir." "Excellent. Tomorrow, 0800 hours, class dismissed." As the students filed out, Krill caught up to Maya in the corridor. "Have you completely lost your mind?" he hissed. "Do you know who he's going to pick to lead the attack? Dravex Vorn." Dravex Vorn was the Academy's golden boy, a fourth-generation military prodigy from the Talaxian Empire. His family had written half the textbooks they studied from. He was also, in Maya's opinion, an arrogant jerk who relied too heavily on classical formations that any human junior officer could counter in their sleep. "Good," Maya said. "It's about time someone taught him that real battles aren't won by following a playbook. You're going to get destroyed. The simulation is rigged to favor attackers. No defensive fleet has won in 15 years. Maya grinned. "Then it's about time someone changed that record, isn't it?" Krill's antennae drooped in resignation. "Why are you humans always so stubborn? Reckless? Prone to challenging authority figures? I was going to say terrifying, but those work too." Maya laughed and clapped her blue friend on the shoulder, carefully modulating her strength. On her homeworld, the gesture would be friendly. Here, among species evolved on low-gravity worlds with half Earth's atmospheric pressure, It could accidentally shatter bones. Trust me, Krill. Tomorrow is going to be fun. The simulation chamber was the pride of the Academy, a cavernous room where holographic projections created a three-dimensional battlefield that responded to the commands of the 8 participating cadets. The rest of the class sat in the observation gallery, eager to watch the impending slaughter of Maya's defensive fleet. Commander Raxis stood on the central platform. Today's exercise will simulate the defense of the Rigel system against an invading fleet. Lieutenant Foster will command the defensive forces, while Cadet Vorn will lead the attack. He turned to Maya. Standard parameters apply. The defensive fleet consists of 50 vessels of various classes positioned around the main habitable planet. The attacking fleet has 75 vessels entering from the system's edge. Dravex Vorn, a tall, gray-skinned Talaxian with a rigid posture that suggested he'd swallowed a flagpole, stepped onto his command platform. He gave Maya a condescending smile. No hard feelings when this is over, human. Not everyone can master the intricacies of galactic warfare. Maya nodded politely. I'm looking forward to a educational experience. You may begin tactical assessment and planning, Raxis announced. Simulation commences in 5 minutes. Maya surveyed the holographic star system spreading out before her. 50 ships against 75 wasn't great odds, but she'd faced worse in training scenarios back on Earth. The key difference was that the Academy's simulations followed the conventional wisdom of galactic warfare, predictable patterns that had remained largely unchanged for centuries. Krill, who'd been assigned as her communications officer, approached her platform. "What's the plan, Lieutenant?" he asked nervously. "First, we're going to break every rule in their precious textbooks," Maya replied, her fingers flying over the control panel. "Have you ever heard of Earth's Battle of Thermopylae?" Thermo what? Ancient Earth history. A small force held off a much larger army by forcing them to fight in a narrow pass. "We're going to create our own Thermopylae in space." Maya began repositioning her fleet. Instead of the standard defensive perimeter around the planet, she concentrated her forces near a dense asteroid field that the attacking fleet would have to navigate around. "But that leaves the planet exposed," Krill protested. "Exactly. Vorn won't be able to resist the obvious target." From the observation gallery, whispers spread as the cadets watched Maya's unorthodox deployment. Commander Raxis's eye stalks twitched with undisguised amusement. Simulation begins in 3, 2, 1, commence. As predicted, Vorn's fleet moved toward the seemingly undefended planet in a textbook attack formation, a spearhead of heavy cruisers flanked by destroyer screens. It was elegant, balanced, and completely predictable. "He's taking the bait," Maya murmured. "Krill, prepare to execute Maneuver Epsilon on my mark." "Maneuver what?" "That's not in our tactical database. That's because I just made it up. When I give the signal, I want our destroyers to accelerate toward the asteroid field at maximum speed. But that's suicide. They'll crash," Maya smiled. "Only if they don't pull up in time, trust me." As Vorn's fleet closed in on the planet, Maya's destroyers suddenly rocketed toward the asteroid field, then pulled up sharply at the last second, using the asteroid's gravity to slingshot themselves behind Vorn's fleet. Meanwhile, Maya had hidden her cruisers in the sensor shadow of a gas giant, which now emerged on Vorn's flank. The observation gallery erupted in shocked exclamations. No one had ever seen these maneuvers before. "Gang, fire all weapons," Maya commanded. Her ships caught Vorn's fleet in a devastating crossfire. Within minutes, a third of the attacking vessels had been destroyed by the simulation. Dravex Vorn's gray face had turned almost white with shock. "This is impossible." He sputtered, frantically trying to reorganize his formation. "Actually, it's basic physics combined with a little historical study," Maya replied over the open channel. "Your formation is based on the assumption that space battles should mimic land battles, with neat lines and formations. But space is three-dimensional, and gravity can be your ally or your enemy." Vorn attempted to rally, ordering his remaining ships to form a defensive sphere, another textbook maneuver. But Maya had anticipated this move. "Krill, tell Cruiser Group 2 to execute Maneuver Delta." "Another one you made up?" This one I borrowed from Admiral Nelson at Trafalgar. Maya's cruisers sliced through Vorn's formation like a hot knife through butter, disrupting his carefully organized sphere. In the resulting chaos, her destroyers picked off the isolated enemy vessels one by one. Commander Raxis watched in stunned silence as the supposedly invincible attacking fleet disintegrated under Maya's unconventional tactics. The observation gallery had gone from excited chatter to shocked silence to enthusiastic cheers as the cadets witnessed history being made. With only 15 minutes elapsed in the hour-long simulation, Dravex Vorn stared at his holographic display in disbelief. More than 60 of his 75 ships had been neutralized, while Maya had lost only 12 of her 50. "Do you concede, Cadet Vorn?" Commander Raxis asked, his voice unexpectedly gentle. Even he seemed shocked by the outcome. Vorn's shoulders slumped. I concede, Commander." A roar of approval erupted from the observation gallery. Most of the cadets had been on the receiving end of Vorn's arrogance at some point, and seeing him defeated so thoroughly was deeply satisfying. Maya powered down her tactical display and walked over to Vorn's platform. She extended her hand in the universal gesture of respect. "Good match." Vorn hesitated, then clasped her hand briefly. "Your tactics were unorthodox. That's often the difference between victory and defeat," Maya replied, "being unpredictable." Commander Raxis approached them, his copper skin now a thoughtful shade of bronze. "Lieutenant Foster, those maneuvers aren't in any tactical manual I've studied." "No, sir. They're adaptations of historical Earth battles, some from thousands of years ago, others more recent, thousands of. But your species has only been spacefaring for a century," Maya nodded. "But we've been fighting each other for thousands of years. War is in our history, our literature, our games. Chess, one of our oldest strategic games, dates back at least 15 centuries. A murmur spread through the cadets who had gathered around. The idea that a species would develop strategic thinking through internal conflicts rather than external threats was alien to most of them. "And this is why humans are considered Deathworlders," Krill whispered to a nearby cadet. "They turned warfare into an art form before they ever left their planet." Commander Raxis's eye stalks swiveled as he processed this information. "Lieutenant Foster, I believe I owe you an apology. It seems there is much we can learn from Earth's military history, and there's much I can learn from galactic tactics, sir," Maya replied diplomatically. "Different perspectives lead to innovation." "Indeed." Raxis turned to address the entire class. "Cadets, today we have witnessed something unprecedented. I encourage you all to study this simulation carefully. Lieutenant Foster has demonstrated that the conventional wisdom isn't always correct, and that sometimes looking to the past can help us navigate the future." As the cadets dispersed, discussing the shocking upset they'd just witnessed, Krill approached Maya with a newfound respect in his eyes. I don't even have words for what that was. How did you know those tactics would work?" Maya shrugged. "Humans have a saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. The principles that worked for Admiral Nelson against Napoleon's fleet work just as well in space, if you understand the underlying concepts." "So what happens now?" Krill asked. Maya looked around at the alien cadets, many of whom were looking at her with a mixture of awe and curiosity, rather than the usual dismissive caution reserved for Deathworlders. Now things get interesting. This was just the opening move. Krill's antennae twitched nervously. "Why do I get the feeling you're playing a much longer game than just winning a simulation?" Maya smiled enigmatically. "Because, my friend, strategy isn't just about winning today's battle. It's about positioning yourself for tomorrow's war." As they walked out of the simulation chamber, Maya couldn't help but notice that Commander Raxis was already reviewing the recording of her tactics, his expression intensely focused. Change was coming to the Galactic Federation Academy, and humanity was about to make its mark on galactic warfare in ways no one had anticipated. And this was only the beginning. News of the simulation upset spread through the Academy faster than a quantum transmission. Within days, Maya found herself the reluctant center of attention. Cadets from all species approached her in the dining hall, in corridors, even outside her quarters, asking questions about human warfare and tactics. You'd think I'd revealed the secret to faster-than-light travel, Maya grumbled to Krill as they navigated the crowded corridor toward advanced xenopsychology class. You might as well have, Krill replied, using his spindly height to part the sea of curious cadets. You shattered centuries of tactical doctrine in 15 minutes. That's not something that happens every cycle. On Earth, it happens constantly. Adapt or die, that's practically our species' motto. A tall, elegant figure stepped into their path. Sephora Lux, a Felorian with iridescent skin and 4 arms, each capable of independent movement and thought. As the Academy's leading xenopsychology student, she'd largely ignored Maya until now. Lieutenant Foster, she said, her melodic voice carrying subtle harmonics that most species found soothing, but Maya had always found it vaguely manipulative. I wonder if I might have a word. Krill nudged Maya. Go ahead. I'll save you a seat. Once they were alone in a quiet alcove, Sephora's professional demeanor shifted subtly. That was quite a performance in the simulation chamber. It wasn't a performance. It was tactical application, of course. Sephora's secondary arms made a gesture of apology while her primary arms remained perfectly still, a Felorian conversational technique designed to convey sincerity. But I'm curious about something. Your victory could have been less dramatic. You could have won by a narrow margin. Instead, you chose total dominance. Why? Maya considered the question. Sephora wasn't wrong. She could have employed subtler tactics, won by a slim margin, avoided drawing so much attention. In human military thinking, there's a concept called shock and awe, Maya explained. Sometimes, a decisive victory does more than win a battle. It changes how your opponents think about fighting you in the future. Fascinating. Sephora's eyes, with their star-shaped pupils, dilated slightly. You weren't just fighting Cadet Vorn. You were sending a message to everyone watching, including Commander Raxis. Maya confirmed. Very clever. Sephora leaned closer, lowering her voice. The Strategic Command Board is meeting tonight. Rumor has it your simulation results are on the agenda. Maya raised an eyebrow. And how would you know that? Sephora's skin rippled with iridescent colors. A Felorian smile. Let's just say I have excellent hearing, and the ventilation ducts in the administrative wing are remarkably sound conductive. Thanks for the information, Maya said, genuinely surprised by the unsolicited help. Don't thank me yet. Sephora's primary arms made a warning gesture. Not everyone is pleased with your performance. Admiral Kraz'Tor arrived on campus this morning. Maya's stomach dropped. Admiral Kraz'Tor, the son of the legendary Admiral Kraz'Tor, whose tactics she had openly criticized. This couldn't be good. Just watch your back, Lieutenant. Deathworlders aren't the only dangerous species in the galaxy. With that cryptic warning, Sephora glided away, her movements so fluid she seemed to float rather than walk. In xenopsychology class, Maya could barely focus on Professor Toolband's lecture about threat assessment across species. Her mind kept returning to Sephora's warning. Why would Admiral Kraz'Tor come to the Academy just days after her simulation victory? And more importantly, why would Sephora warn her? After class, Krill noticed her distraction. You look like you're plotting galactic domination again. Just thinking. Maya hesitated, then added, have you heard anything about Admiral Kraz'Tor visiting campus? Krill's antennae shot straight up in alarm. Kraz'Tor? Here? That's not good, Maya. His family practically runs the Strategic Command, and after you criticized his father's tactics. Yeah, I've been connecting those dots too. What are you going to do? Maya shrugged. What can I do? I'm not going to apologize for being right. Typical human response. Krill sighed. On my world we have a saying, sometimes the flexible reed survives when the mighty boulder is washed away. On Earth we say stand your ground. Maya checked her comm unit. I've got to go. Commander Raxis wants to see me in his office. The dread in Krill's expression didn't help Maya's growing anxiety. Commander Raxis's office reflected his military precision, everything arranged at perfect angles, not a datapad out of place. The commander himself stood by the viewport, his copper skin gleaming in the light of the binary stars outside. "Lieutenant Foster, thank you for coming promptly." He gestured to a chair designed to accommodate multiple species. "Please, sit." Maya sat, noticing that the chair had been adjusted to human proportions, a small courtesy that surprised her. "I'll get straight to the point," Raxis said, settling his considerable bulk behind his desk. "Your performance in the simulation has attracted attention from Strategic Command." "I've heard Admiral Kraz'Tor is on campus," Maya said, deciding a direct approach was best. Raxis's eye stalks twitched, surprised that she knew, perhaps. "Yes. The Admiral has taken a personal interest in your tactical innovations. Is that good or bad, sir?" "That depends entirely on your perspective, Lieutenant." Raxis activated a holographic display on his desk. "The Strategic Command Board is convening a special session this evening. They've requested your presence." Maya's mouth went dry. "Am I being court-martialed for criticizing Gextor's tactics?" To her surprise, Raxis laughed, a rumbling sound like distant thunder. "Court-martialed? No, Lieutenant. They want you to present your tactical theories to the entire board." "What?" "Your simulation victory has sparked a debate within Strategic Command. Some believe your tactics represent a valuable new perspective. Others," he paused, "others are more skeptical. And where does Admiral Kraz'Tor stand?" Raxis's skin darkened slightly. "The Admiral has his father's legacy to consider. But he's also a pragmatist. If your tactical theories have merit, he'll want to understand them. And if he decides they don't have merit, then your career in the Galactic Federation might become challenging." Raxis leaned forward. "Lieutenant, this is an unprecedented opportunity. No cadet, let alone a junior officer from a newly admitted species, has ever addressed the Strategic Command Board. Whatever happens, you're making history." Maya nodded, her mind racing. "What exactly do they want me to present?" "An overview of human tactical thinking, historical context, practical applications for modern fleet engagements. You have 4 hours to prepare. 4 hours to condense thousands of years of human military history into a presentation that might determine the future relationship between Earth and the Galactic Federation." "No pressure. I'll be ready, sir." "I have no doubt." Raxis hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, Lieutenant, I've reviewed the historical battles you referenced in your tactics. Your Admiral Nelson was quite impressive for a primitive aquatic warfare commander." Coming from Raxis, this was extraordinarily high praise. "Thank you, sir. The presentation will be in the Grand Assembly Hall, 1900 hours. Full dress uniform." Raxis's eye stalk swiveled toward the door. "You're dismissed, Lieutenant, and good luck." Maya burst into her quarters and immediately began pulling up files on her datapad. 4 hours wasn't much time to prepare what might be the most important presentation of her life. A chime at her door interrupted her frantic research. She opened it to find Krill, Sephora, and to her surprise Dravex Vorn. "What's this?" she asked, momentarily confused by the unlikely trio. "Your emergency response team," Krill said, pushing past her into the room. "Sephora told us about the Strategic Command meeting, and you're helping me?" "Why?" Maya directed this question at Vorn, who looked distinctly uncomfortable. The Talaxian straightened his already rigid posture. "Because while I find your tactics unorthodox and your criticism of established doctrine borderline insubordinate, I cannot deny their effectiveness." "That's the closest thing to a compliment you'll get from him," Sephora said, her forearms already arranging datapads on Maya's desk. "I've compiled psychological profiles of each board member, their biases, preferences, pressure points, which is probably illegal," Krill noted, "but extremely helpful. And I've brought simulations of your tactical innovations applied to historical Federation battles," Vorn added, holding up a data crystal, "to demonstrate how outcomes might have changed." Maya looked at the 3 aliens, each from a different species, each with their own agenda, who had come to help her. "I don't know what to say." "Betray, say nothing," Sephora advised, her secondary arms making efficiency gestures. "We have limited time, and Kraz'Tor is known for his hatred of unprepared presentations." For the next 3 hours, they worked feverishly. Vorn's simulations provided concrete examples of how human tactical thinking could benefit Federation forces. Sephora's insights helped Maya tailor her approach to appeal to the various psychological profiles on the board, and Krill's natural talent for narrative helped shape it all into a cohesive presentation. "There's one thing I don't understand," Maya said as they finalized the presentation. "Why is this so important to all of you?" Sephora answered first. "The Federation has grown complacent. Your species represents something new, unpredictable. Yes, but also adaptable in ways we've forgotten. The hegemony has been testing our borders for decades," Vorn added. "Standard tactics haven't deterred them. Perhaps human unpredictability will." Krill's antennae twitched in agreement. "Also, you're our friend. Weird Deathworlder habits and all." Maya felt a lump in her throat. On Earth, this kind of cross-species cooperation would have seemed impossible. Yet here she was, preparing to address the Federation's highest military authority with help from 3 aliens who had every reason to see her as a competitor rather than an ally. "Thank you," she said simply. "All of you." Vorn checked the time. "You should change into your dress uniform, Lieutenant. The board appreciates punctuality above all else." As they gathered their materials to leave, Sephora paused. "One last thing, Maya. Admiral Kraz'Tor will try to provoke you to make you appear emotional and unstable. It's a common tactic against new species." "What should I do?" "Be human," Krill suggested. "But the calm, strategic kind of human, not the scary Deathworlder kind that makes everyone nervous." "I'll try to contain my natural terrifying aura," Maya said dryly. Vorn actually cracked a smile, the first Maya had ever seen on his face. Perhaps a small display of Deathworlder intensity might not be amiss at the right moment. "At the right moment," Vorn, Sephora exclaimed. "Are you suggesting psychological warfare against the Strategic Command?" "Merely tactical application of available resources," he replied primly, but there was a glint in his eye that suggested the rigid Talaxian might be developing a sense of humor. After they left, Maya changed into her dress uniform. The gleaming blue and silver of Earth's unified defense force standing in stark contrast to the more ornate Federation styles. She studied her reflection in the mirror. "Just be human," she told herself. The calm, strategic kind. The Grand Assembly Hall was intimidating by design's soaring ceilings, ancient battle flags from 100 worlds, and a semicircular table where the 13 members of the Strategic Command Board sat in ascending rank order. Admiral Kraz'Tor, a larger, more imposing version of Commander Raxis, occupied the central position. Lieutenant Maya Foster of Earth, the protocol officer announced, addressing the board on the subject of human tactical doctrine and its applications to modern fleet engagements. Maya stepped onto the speaker's platform, acutely aware of the hundreds of eyes and other sensory organs fixed on her. In the audience, she spotted Krill, Sephora, and Vorn sitting together. Commander Raxis stood at the back, his copper skin gleaming under the ceremonial lights. "Honorable members of the Strategic Command," Maya began, "I stand before you representing not just myself, but Earth and its military tradition, a tradition spanning thousands of years across continents, oceans, and eventually into space." For the next 20 minutes, Maya walked the board through humanity's complex military history, emphasizing how constant conflict had forced rapid tactical evolution. She showed Vorn's simulations of how human approaches might have changed historical Federation engagements, and concluded with practical applications for current strategic challenges. Throughout her presentation, Admiral Kraz'Tor watched with an unreadable expression, his yellow eyes fixed on her with predatory intensity. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before the Admiral spoke. "An impressive presentation, Lieutenant. But I must question the validity of applying primitive planetary tactics to the complexities of modern space warfare." Here it was the challenge Sephora had warned about. "With respect, Admiral, the principles remain the same whether the battlefield is land, sea, air, or space. Mobility, concentration of force, surprise, economy of effort, these fundamentals transcend the medium of combat. And what of honor, Lieutenant? Your tactics in the simulation hiding ships, Using natural phenomena as weapons, they lack the noble clarity of traditional engagement. Maya took a deep breath. This wasn't just about tactics anymore. This was about culture, tradition, and pride. Go. On Earth, Admiral, we have a saying: the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Our greatest military philosophers taught that the most honorable victory is one that preserves the lives of your own forces while achieving your objective. Here in the simulation, I lost 12 ships. A traditional approach would have cost me 30 or more. Murmurs spread through the audience. Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. The question isn't whether human tactics have honor, but whether our definition of honor includes the responsibility to protect the lives under our command. I believe it does. Admiral Kraz'Tor leaned forward, his massive form casting a shadow across the table. You speak of responsibility, yet your species has been engaged in warfare for its entire history. How can such a violent species be trusted with the responsibility of Federation tactics? This was the moment Vorn had mentioned the time for a small display of Deathworlder intensity. Maya stepped closer to the edge of the platform, looking directly into the Admiral's eyes. Precisely because we understand the cost of war better than anyone, Admiral. Humanity doesn't glorify conflict, we've seen too much of it. But when war becomes necessary, we fight to win, decisively, and with minimal losses. We've learned these lessons through blood and fire. I would rather apply those lessons in simulations than have the Federation learn them in actual combat. The room fell completely silent. Even the protocol officers seemed to be holding their breath. Then, to everyone's surprise, Admiral Kraz'Tor laughed, a booming sound that echoed off the ancient walls. Spoken like a true tactician, Lieutenant, bold, direct, and with conviction. He turned to the other board members. This is exactly the perspective we need: a species that doesn't just understand war theoretically but has evolved through it. The hegemony won't be defeated by textbook maneuvers. Mateys. Maya blinked, struggling to hide her shock at this sudden reversal. Lieutenant Foster, the Admiral continued, the Strategic Command has been discussing the creation of a new Tactical Innovation Division, a team tasked with developing unconventional approaches to counter emerging threats. How would you feel about heading that division upon your graduation? Whispers erupted throughout the hall. Such an offer to a junior officer, a cadet, essentially was unprecedented. I would be honored, Admiral, Maya replied, finding her voice. But I believe innovation flourishes best in diverse environments. I would request that my team include representatives from multiple Federation species, each bringing their unique perspectives. Kraz'Tor's eye stalks twisted in what might have been approval, a diplomatic answer, Lieutenant. And a tactically sound one. He turned to the board. I move that we approve the formation of the Tactical Innovation Division, with Lieutenant Foster as its future commander, effective upon her graduation. The vote was unanimous. As the formal proceedings concluded, Maya found herself surrounded by board members eager to discuss human military history. From across the room, she caught sight of her friends, Krill looking stunned, Sephora radiating pleased colors, and Vorn giving her a formal Talaxian salute of respect. Commander Raxis approached, his copper skin now a warm bronze tone that indicated pleasure. Congratulations, Lieutenant. It seems you've sparked a revolution in Federation tactical thinking. Thank you, sir. I couldn't have done it without your support and the help of my classmates. That's another human trait we would do well to adopt, building alliances across species barriers. Raxis gestured toward Admiral Kraz'Tor, who was engaged in animated conversation with other board members. You've made quite an impression on the Admiral. I thought he hated me at first, Maya admitted. Kraz'Tor doesn't hate innovation, Lieutenant. He merely tests it thoroughly before embracing it. His father was the same way. Maya raised an eyebrow. Wait, you knew he was going to support me? Raxis's skin rippled with amusement. Let's just say I suspected his opposition might not be as firm as it appeared. The Admiral has been concerned about the hegemony threat for years. Your tactics represent a potential solution. As the crowd began to disperse, Krill, Sephora, and Vorn finally reached her. I can't believe it worked. Krill exclaimed, his antennae vibrating with excitement. Of course it worked, Sephora said, her forearms making graceful gestures of certainty. The psychological profiles indicated a 78% probability of success, given the right presentation. The simulations were particularly effective, Vorn noted. Even I was impressed by how human tactics might have changed historical outcomes. Maya looked at her unlikely allies, now friends, and felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with her personal success. This was what Earth's integration into the Galactic Federation was really about, not just sharing technology or resources, but perspectives, ways of thinking that could benefit everyone. So, Commander of the Tactical Innovation Division, Krill said, emphasizing her future title. Does this mean you'll be teaching the class next year instead of taking it? God, I hope not. Maya laughed. I'm still learning myself. That, said Admiral Kraz'Tor, who had approached quietly despite his size, is precisely why you're the right choice, Lieutenant Foster. The moment we believe we have nothing left to learn is the moment we begin our defeat. After the Admiral moved on, Sephora leaned closer to Maya. You've changed things, you know. For all of us. The quiet Deathworlder girl who sat in the back of strategy class has just reshaped Federation military doctrine. Maya thought about Earth still finding its place in the galactic community and all the other human officers scattered throughout the Federation forces, each bringing their unique human perspective to their posts. This is just the beginning, she said quietly. Humanity has a lot more to offer than just tactical innovation. That, Vorn replied with unexpected warmth, is what terrifies and excites the rest of us in equal measure. As they left the Grand Assembly Hall together, human, Ardaxian, Felorian, and Talaxian, Maya couldn't help but smile. The Galactic Federation had accepted Earth into its ranks, expecting a minor contribution from a young species. Instead, they were getting a revolution not through force of arms, but through the power of human perspective, forged in the crucible of Earth's long and complex history. The Deathworlder girl who sat quietly in strategy class hadn't just outsmarted their fleet. She'd begun to transform the way an entire galactic civilization thought about warfare, cooperation, and innovation, and she was just getting started.